Hand that out.
And then I didn't mean, was it Dave who had his hand up?
While he's handing it out, there was another person or two who thought wanted. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
since we're all in the era of Daniel Boone, and we went to the era of the Jetsons, how can we use this to get the word out?
Well, you're good at that, Carmen.
What this is it would be a tool that we would use to help us gather the kind of information that we need to gather so that we can build a plan. I mean, when you're starting out a building project, and or a renovation project, first thing you figure out what are we working with, right? What's good and bad? What are we working with? Then from there, you figure out what the or how about the walls, or build something up, right? Building terms, now let's talk about building it in. So first thing we want to do is this is also whether we actually get what get into our community. I need to talk to people who know stuff. I need to, we need to do some community leaders interviews. I need to talk to leaders in our community. I need to talk to realtors. I need to talk to school officials, and people who know what's going on and who are also in charge of kind of projecting what's coming. What are you planning for, right? Why'd you move that school 2 miles that way, right? And sink so much money into there versus renovating what you had over here, right? Why did that make sense to you? I want to know. I want to know what they know. So that's kind of what we need to figure out, right? And we might find 2 or 3 communities in which go, I want to do a deep dive right here. I want to do a similar deep dive in Community B and in Community C, so that we just have good data on 3 potential mission fields. Right? There's one group of people here. We're not going to split ourselves into 3 places. Where would be the best place if we were to reset ministry? God's blessed ministry here for decades. But if we were to reset ourselves up in this moment for the next 30 to 40 years, where would we want that to be? What would we want that to look like? All right? So, question 1 is we need to do the research, and then eventually we need to come to a conclusion that says we believe that this is the best place for us to set ourselves up for doing gospel ministry. Right? The people who are going to help make a decision whether this is something that your brothers and sisters all around the synod are going to invest in, are most of them, probably none of them, will ever be in Corpus Christi. Everything they're going to know is going to be on 3 or 4 pieces of paper that you're going to answer question number 1. And that's the only difference. That's all they're going to know about Corpus Christi. So we need to do our research, and then in 3 to 4 pages be able to lay out clearly this is what's going on here, and this is what makes this an exciting place to do gospel ministry. Right? Question number 2 is pretty simple, but what it tells you is, the question is what research has been done by whom and when. In other words, they want to be able to see that you guys have done this work. Right? That it wasn't me or Pastor Sutton coming in and conducting those interviews. It wasn't us coming in and doing the outreach. They want to know that you guys have, that this is your work, this is your church, this is your community, and you believe in it. Right? So we need to be able to answer number 2 with your names, right? And what did we do? Right? Question number 3, specifically, particularly in terms of outreach, what outreach have we done? Because they again want to see not just that you said, hey, we promise if you send us a pastor, we'll do outreach. This isn't a promissory note. This is something they want to look at going, all right, prove it to us that this is something you are also willing to put some sweat equity into. We believe in it enough to make the sacrifices and get out of our comfort zone and do some of this ourselves. So that's question number 3, which means obviously it assumes that we've done stuff to be able to answer question number 3. Question number 4 is who are we? This one's relatively simple. But, and this is a strength, by the way, of this request, because a lot of these requests are going to have 3 families' names on here, right? Because it's a brand new mission start in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and all I got is 3 families. You're going to come in there with 15 families, 20 families. So question number 4 is the strength of your request, but what we also need to demonstrate is not only that you're human beings, but that you're human beings that have spiritual gifts and spiritual interest, ministry interest, and so each of you would write a short 2-paragraph biography of yourselves, all right, and the best picture of you that you've taken in the last 12 months, all right.
Short is that, isn't it?
Question number 5 would be a really important question, and that says, okay, so this is an interesting mission field. And I got a group of people who believe in it, are excited about it, but what are you going to do? Right? And this is where we would need to figure out whether we're going to say, we're staying here, and this is how we're going to connect to our community. And or we believe that we need to do Hispanic ministry, and this is why. Right? And or, we're convinced that we probably need to locate ourselves someplace else, and this is what that ministry style would look like because that community is served by, this type of outreach or this type of programming. Right? So we would need to take the time to figure out what's our plan, not only where do we want to do it, but what are we going to do there, and that's question number 5. And then question number 6 is basically the money question. What's it going to cost? Okay. So how much money do you have? How much money then are we short? What do we need? If I'm going to do that style of ministry, then we'd build a budget that matches that style of ministry, and then this is how much we have to be able to contribute ourselves, and this is how much we're short. And therefore, this is how much we're asking of our church body, and for how long we're asking for it. And then that would determine whether this is unsubsidized, which it doesn't sound likely, or it's in the mission enhancement category, which means only like 3 years of help and $100,000 to $150,000, right? Or is this something that's a bigger deal? And that would maybe be like, for example, either if it's like just kind of a full-on Hispanic ministry, or if it's particularly if it's a relocation, and we're just going, this is a bigger deal, and we're going to need 8-9 years of help, right? Right, and more in the $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 range if we're to do that, because this is kind of we've decided that kind of a full-on restart is probably what it's gonna take, right? But that's how, on the basis of what we decide, where and how, then what's gonna cost, and that will determine the nature of the kind of request that we're asking for, right? And anywhere along the way, at some point, if you realize that, we don't need your help anymore, and or we're gonna go a different route or whatever, then, that's where you guys decide, this has been a useful tool, and thank you, and we got it from here, right? And we'll now talk to Pastor Patterson about getting a call list, or we need to continue this partnership and maybe even, rather than just dating, we gotta get married somewhere along the way, alright? So this would be the tool that we would use. Now again, this is obviously just an outline. What I would suggest is I'd potentially, I was looking at my schedule and I'm gonna be in the area kind of that first or second week of July, so about 4 or 5 weeks from now.
How about the first week or second week in August?
We could do that.
Well, the reason I say that is we are going to have a full-time pastor from July through August.
Right.
Full-time temporary.
Right.
Yeah, full-time temporary, but we will have a full-time pastor for that month.
Which is great, but we
Or
need
can
all,
start doing the-
yeah, we need all that time. Like, him being around will help you guys, right? Because he'll help, he'll be the boots on the ground guy that's gonna kind of help organize things. It's easier than me from Vegas calling in going, hey, how's that coming,
No,
right?
I was talking about, the bringing friends to church. We talk about not having a pastor. Well, we'll have a pastor
Yeah,
for at least 4 weeks before you show up again.
right.
So,
Yeah. So what I'd want to kind of get at, this is going to be a process that's going to take some time, right? And I'd love to kind of just get at it, start the process sooner than later.
okay.
And what I would suggest is that when I come back, that I'd want to meet with whoever thinks that they'd like to be a part of building this plan, right?
Is there anybody here that doesn't?
All of us?
All right. Well, then what you can do between now and then is start to give some prayerful thought to what part of this do I think I'd want to be a part of, right? So maybe there's an easy one, but there's a person or two who likes numbers and budgeting. We're gonna need that person, right? Or those people. So there's a bunch of this is gonna just have to deal with that. But then I need a person or two is gonna go, I'm gonna look into the, I wanna help brainstorm our outreach methodology, right? What would that look like? Right? Let's talk more about this, partnering with nonprofits, or let's talk about canvassing, or let's talk about ESL, English as a Second Language for Hispanic community. But I need a person or two or a group that's gonna help brainstorm, figuring out, how we're gonna do outreach, right? I need another group or two or three people who are willing to help do the demographic stuff, right? People who are comfortable, lining up interviews with people and then sitting down, and I'll give you the 10 or 12 questions to ask. But you guys sit down across the table with them and conduct that interview and help us gather the data that we need to, to confirm what it is that we find that perhaps we really know. So, in terms of thinking through, because then what I would do is we would spend some time together then saying, all right, so here's the tools that you need, right? I would send, we would talk it through, but I'd send an email with 4 or 5 attachments going, right, so here's how you conduct a community profile. Here's the kind of people we want to talk to. Here's the 10 questions to ask of this type of person. Here's the 10 questions to ask of this type of person. I'd walk you through and help you understand or read a mission insight report and gather the kind of numbers and data that we need to help substantiate some of that stuff. Or read through, talk to and then read through those, the comprehensive plans, right, for the communities. The budget, right? You'd have to familiarize me with your budget, but we would have to transfer all of that into the Board for All Missions template that they use. So when they're comparing missions, they're not trying to figure out all these different line items from a dozen different churches that have a dozen different ways of showing how a budget looks, right? We have to put that into the Board for All Missions template. But we'd have to also, there's coordination. We'd have to talk about, so if the person who's doing the budget isn't necessarily the person who's gotta go out and figure out all the different line items, right? That some of us are gonna have to, do some of the research then and feed that information over to the guy who's gonna drop in the numbers, right? So for example, I mean, if you know, if we looked at this and said, well, you know, if there's facility renovations gonna be necessary, if we're gonna do that type of ministry, we'd have to get some numbers behind that, but I'm not gonna dump all that on my numbers guy and go, well, then you go better talk to a contractor, right? One of us will go, all right, I'll be one to talk to the contractor, right? If for the sake of discussion, we decide, well, let's just see what it would cost to relocate, where would we set ourselves up temporarily? Is there anything available and what would that cost? And again, I probably want somebody who's willing to talk to a realtor who's gonna help get that information versus asking my budget guy, you gotta find that out for us, right? I don't wanna feed that information to him. So anyway, so in keeping in mind the kind of things that we would maybe do between now and then, if you're all willing, that's awesome. But I don't want all of you doing all of it, right? Two of you doing this part of it, two of you doing that part, and two of you doing that part. And then we'd meet, you know, a couple times to make sure that we're sharing that information with each other and we're all kind of agreeing on, this seems to be directing us in this direction, right? So make sure that our information is, coming together in a way that, that everything matches up.
And to Dave's point, yes, we want you to be, you know, being served by Word and Sacrament faithfully and regularly all along the way. This is not the replacement for that. Yes, we want that, but this is again, I mean, even just that first page on the inside there. I mean, you look at that and with or without us, this would be what I think you would want to be doing in terms of where do we go, the 1,000 things we could be doing. I mean, you guys know you can probably only do one or two things really well, you know, based on your group right now. So what would that be? I mean, this is what's going to help you see that. It could be that there's 1,000 other Wells churches that do this particular program, but that might not be right for here. This is going to help you figure out of the two big yeses or the things that you can focus on. These would be the things that we're going to do because we know our community now. If we want to connect with them in a way that we just, through however it happened over the last decade or so, we just kind of lost touch. This is going to help you. Or help you say, you know, that maybe we need to do something more drastic. But this is what's going to help you with or without us, all while you're being served by Word and Sacrament ministry. But this is something that's also going to help us see, are you really in this? And yeah, it is a lot of work. And yeah, there's a few things that can be kind of daunting when he starts to talk about the budget. And that's important, it really is, especially if we're going to have a partnership. But you're not going to lose by going and having these conversations with people, interviewing people. You're going to be that much better for it as a group. And I think you're going to be a lot more excited about some of the things you say yes to, where you're like, I mean, God will do what he does in terms of how he blesses it. But you're going to say, we really know our community, and this is something that we're going to figure out how to do it best, how to connect with them, but we know this is the need that we need to do.
So what would a timeline look like?
So a timeline potential would look like that, I'd be back, right off the top of my head, as kind of like July 9th, I think, or 10th. Be back and we would have a meeting and we would talk about what I just talked about. So who's gonna do what, right? And then, what's that?
A month from now.
Correct, right? And then, we would set something then for like a month later going, all right, we're obviously not gonna have all the answers within a month's time, but I'd like to have a really good, like, intentional check-in, right? By this date, I'm gonna have something to be able to present. Each one of us is gonna know more than we did a month ago and have an early draft of sorts, if you will, right? Which is some early information. Somewhere along the line, I'd love for us to consider reaching out to Synod's mission journeys, and you mentioned, you know, a group of kids coming in and helping doing something. But we'd pick something like a food drive canvas or something, right? Or some other event that we think like it would be great to have a few other people
Corpus Christi is a good place where,
A lot of college kids, they kind of like that idea, especially if they're up with WLC or MLC or some of those places, like, coming down south would not be so bad, fall break or.
So somewhere along the line, we try to do, one of those things. In the meantime, though, we'd also, especially my outreach person or two, would be brainstorming, identify a thing or two that we could do, right, in terms of outreach. And so then, we'd want to execute a couple of those over the course of the fall. As the fall rolls on, we would would meet often enough so that this plan is really starting to come together, right? And we're starting to now gather all this data, and now we gotta start making some tough decisions, some tough choices, right? I'll say right up front, there is no silver bullet, right? If there was a silver bullet, I'd write a book and then, right, sit on a beach in Corpus Christi, all right?
You fund all of these mission opportunities.
Right.
Yeah.
There isn't a silver bullet. None of this is easy. Jesus never said the spreading the gospel is going to be easy, right? So I hope you're not expecting me to come in here in July, right, and have one of these filled out and going, here it is, go to it, right? It's not the way it's going to be. We're going to do this together, and we're going to be praying and asking questions and praying that God's going to kind of, help bring this together for us. In terms of ultimate timeline, if this is something that we need money to help do, right? So again, as I indicated, we're going to be executing along the way. But in terms of actually having the money that we need, that's where that January is kind of our deadline to get it to the district mission board. And March-ish is when we're going to get an answer from the Synod as to whether the money that we're asking for has been approved or not. Okay? And then if it is, if it's going to require money for us to be able to really be able to afford a pastor, then it could be that 12 months or so until we actually have to officially know that we got the money, right? And so that's, yeah, right, in terms of timeline. So what it means is a couple things. First of all, this isn't all going to change overnight, right? Second of all, what it means is that this is less about, hey, give us the pastor and then we'll be fine. It's more about, and every pastor will tell you this, it's far less about the pastor, and God's designed it that way too. Ephesians 4 does not say God's given pastors and teachers to do the work of the church. Ephesians 4 says God's given pastors and teachers to prepare God's people to do works of service, right? So the sooner we can get it in our heads going, if this is going to work, it's not about doing the bare minimum so we get a pastor in here and then he's going to make it awesome. It's going to require not only up front, but long term, me as a Christian, investing in my church and in my community, and expecting God to bless that as each of us just lets our gospel light shine that others may see our good deeds and glorify our Father in heaven. So there's not a silver bullet, and this isn't a quick fix. Board for Missions wants to know that these are good investments, right? And there's going to be 10 to 12 of these a year that we're going to support. Most of them are not going to be like yours, right? Most of them are going to be brand new starts to put brand new churches in brand new places, because that's what the Board for Missions does. But it's not the only thing it does. And it's happy to partner with congregations that are saying, we need a reset, right? And we're willing to do the work that's necessary to help do that. So that's what it would look like working with us. And I personally would be around, maybe not, well, certainly not every month, but whenever we set, just going, here's the next time when we need to meet, and this is what we need to do between now and then. There would be some Zoom stuff going on in the meantime, right? So some of the training that's necessary, some of the interfacing that perhaps we have to do that I can't physically be here to do, we would do it via Zoom if necessary, right? But you'd have our attention for the next 7-8 months, real intense attention to get this to, Lord willing, where something that we feel really excited about and believe that our brothers and sisters around the synod will also believe in, come January-ish.
So I'm assuming we're gonna get a dual track. We'll still be trying to put together, our visiting pastors.
Pastor
church
Patterson will still be
pastors,
doing that, yeah.
once a month pastors, and then we're doing this other thing.
Exactly, right? So that we get to a point where, A, we have the funding to be able to afford a full-time pastor, and B, I've got a ministry that a pastor's gonna, you know, leave whatever he's happy and successful and God's blessing and uproot his family and come here to do something different here, right? There's gotta be something appealing about that. But you're right, I mean, in the meantime, we're not closing the doors and going, right, shutting down, and we'll reopen, right, 9, 12 months from now. That's not what we're suggesting. What we're suggesting is that while you're doing what you continue to do in terms of being served, that we're gonna spend a lot more time and energy and sweat equity and dreaming and planning and figuring out what do we need to do for this to be what it's gonna be for the future. All right, we've been talking a long time. I appreciate your time and your attention. I'm hoping that,
We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
But just any other, questions or thoughts, you have Pastor Sutton's contact information, you can have my contact information. We'll,
Yeah, I'm actually not that far away from them too, so I mean, I can be a part of this one in a way. It's harder for me as a chairman to get out to every location that we're working with, be it those that are already getting subsidy, and then those that we're working with to develop a package, but like Bentonville, I did that a little bit, but that got to be kind of hard, so we had Nathan Nass over in Tulsa, that's the airport we flew into anyways, but here, it's a little closer, you know, the beach isn't so bad, so, you know, my family likes to come down here.
I have a question,
Sure.
both of y'all together, seeing the situation we're in, what is your vision for us?
Let me think about it.
I think I would say,
all the information.
that's what I'd say, like, I hesitate. I don't wanna give the impression that we're coming in here and telling you how to run your church.
No,
Right?
no.
This is your church, this is your community. We have tools and, you know, there are, objectively, we can look at some things and go, right, eliminate the history, eliminate the emotion, right? And just go objectively, because the people ultimately are gonna make a decision whether they're gonna invest in you or not, are gonna be looking at this completely, far more objectively than I am, because they're never gonna meet you, right? I have now at least a little bit of an emotional connection to you in this place. They're not at all. So I need to separate myself from that a bit and just go, all right, what makes sense, right, here? And so together with you, we'll hopefully be able to do that, right? And then develop a plan.
You only
So-
get one bite of the apple?
No, we put it in January, and if they say no, now this is pretty common, actually. I think probably half of maybe even 2/3 of the ones that got funded this year were told no last year,
Yep.
right?
Both of ours this year that
Yeah.
got funded.
All it does obviously kick the timeline 12 more months, right? But, no, you don't just get one chance. Usually, every once in a while, they'll give a denial, which means, yeah, don't bother bringing this back, right? But more commonly what happens is what's called a deferral, which says, nice idea, just not quite nice enough yet, right? And here's 3 things that we would suggest that you need to work on, before you bring it back in, right? So that's pretty often the case. So anyways, the answer to your question is no, but it's not, put an I, change this letter and bring it back to us in 3 months. It's usually a little bit more work, and it's 12 more months.
In terms of a vision, yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would have enough. I think Kelly said it very well. It'd be foolhardy to say something that detailed, but I think what I would love to see and would want for you is to be a group that's, reinvigorated with a sense of hope and excitement about outreach. And I'm not saying you guys aren't, but I'm just saying that there are opportunities and you are able to do that with or without a pastor. And I love that you you want the pastor and you wanna continue to be served in a part-time capacity, but Lord willing, in a full-time capacity, but before that, without that even, to have that, to get excited about a vision of your own, even apart from that pastor that's fueled by your community. And it might not, whatever we thought coming in with sort of a 1,000-foot view level of Corpus, it might not align with that at all, and that's okay, as long as it's kind of born out of the fact that you know your community, you've gotten to know it even better than you have before, and that you really want to do what you can to connect with them. And then, yeah, I mean, then whatever that is, putting a man in here that we get to partner with and partner with you, not just him. And I think that's probably about as clear a vision as I have at this point, but that would be what I have in mind, and I think what we would share in terms of that vision, what we would hope for.
It was like Al was saying, what do you wanna do? Do we want a temporary pastor until we don't collect, enough people die off, that we can't collect enough money on Sunday to pay the bills so that we have to sell? What's the other option? Is to grow.
But I look at this room and, well, yeah, I mean, aside from Devin, yes, I mean, but there's still, I think, a lot of exciting opportunity here, and seize the moment. This is the moment we're at. However we got here, this is the moment we're at. So let's seize that moment that God has given us. Let's go after it for such a time as this, and see where God takes us. And I'm excited about that. If you guys are excited about it. If you're not, well, God's put more than enough work in front of Pastor Vogt and me in Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, but I just would hate to see Corpus not be a place that we could be. There's a lot of, I think, exciting things, and I'll just say appealing and alluring things, just from a human standpoint about Corpus, that seems like a shame not to have a Wells church that's reaching the lost here in a way that we can uniquely.
Let me speak to the old folks. I think that this church has, pound for pound, more years of experience of being a Lutheran than most Lutheran churches in Texas. We have a beautiful church. This fellowship hall is a huge asset. People come here and say, gee, I didn't know you had this, right? And they're just visiting, or they're just coming here for a class or the rummage sale or something. People know where we are. If we talk to people and I say, well, we go to church over here on Gethsemane, and they say, where is that? I tell them, that's over Holly Road, next to the funeral home. Next to the funeral home, and they say, oh yeah, we know where that is. So,
Because they go over
they
there.
know, they come by here. You can put something up on our sign, in over a week's time, I swear, but 2/3 of Corpus Christi goes down Holly Road. And they'll see it, right? Because Holly Road traverses the whole city. I mean, in terms of knowing what it is to be a Lutheran, knowing what it is to be a Christian, this group here has a lot of life experience. Okay, we're kind of gray, white, but we are, we can tell people what it means to be a Christian, pluses and minuses over your lifetime.
I need to share it. So we need to find a way to bridge that gap and share it with our community, so.
Is there a chance that we could talk to Flunker? Pastor Tim Flunker?
Yeah,
Definitely.
In fact, I was already planning to reach out to him and say, hey, as this starts to roll out, we'd like you to come in and do your work as well, right? But that would be one of the options we'd want to explore, and he'd be better equipped to explore it than I would. So, would definitely be one of the pieces that we want to incorporate in our data gathering, as well as, potentially rolling out a plan.
Well, I was thinking more sooner than later. No, I'm just saying it, just to encourage the group. What's required,
So,
some of the steps that.
let me talk to,
Okay.
well, we can talk about that and
All
we'll
right.
see what we can do on
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Are we ready to just about wrap up? So I just have a couple things. First of all, I just shared with Bobby and Beth the contact information for a lady who's moving from College Station or has just moved
Oh, yeah.
to.
She was here.
Oh, she's here. Oh, she already knows you guys?
She's not here, she was here.
Visited. She
visited.
Oh, she did, okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, well,
But
your group is,
we'll reach out to her again.
hopefully, your group is growing, so. I don't know if it's necessarily in your age range, Devin, but,
Poor Devin.
second of all, just the partnership side of things, if you know of any contacts that you might have in the McAllen area, be it Spanish speaking only or English speaking, please share that with us because we are trying to get a bilingual mission up and running, but we need a core group really to get it started. And that can be on either side, but a bilingual mission in the McAllen area. And while we understand that there are, I think, kind of like you were describing, Corpus, a lot of the Hispanic population there that tends to be able to speak English pretty proficiently or very fluently. At the same time, we also recognize that there are going to be a number that maybe aren't ready to do that or culturally would prefer Spanish, a Spanish speaking, or a service in Spanish, Bible studies in Spanish. We are looking to partner with Academia Cristo, a more local opportunity to do that. But in order to do that, we need people that can invite their relatives or friends to start that, and they need to know that they live in that area, and that they would invite them to start that, and then we can kind of farm that, if you will. But you would be a location that we figure, well, maybe you would know some people that have come from here to McAllen or other in that area-ish. Again, on either side of it, it can be they speak English, don't speak any Spanish, or it could be they speak only Spanish, or both. If you, as you think about it, if all of a sudden you're like, oh, I should have said this, use my contact information. I'll send that again to Bobby and share my PowerPoint presentation to him, and then through him, hopefully to you. Please let us know because we're kind of at an impasse where we don't have a core group. We don't even have a group like this that we can really work with. We have a church in Weslaco, but we're looking to do something McAllen is huge. It's a whole different group compared to even Weslaco and what they have going there. So but we need to start somewhere, and so we're just coming to you to say that would be another way that you could possibly partner with us.
What's the academic degree?
That's for World Missions, Facebook initiative to do Bible studies to equip leaders wherever they are. So, like in South America, the missionary might be in Paraguay, and he's working with a group in Venezuela. And no, he can't go there. He can't necessarily train up a missionary there that's like a fully fledged Wells pastor missionary. But they're going to do that.
Fantastic program.
And so we're looking to try to do something like that to develop a core group that we could use then to put in a mission.
That would really drive your average age down.
No, you'd be surprised. The last thing I'm going to share with you is not something I love doing, but Pastor Gagline asked me to just share with you that his wife, Karen, was diagnosed with a very aggressive brain tumor last week, and they just found out that she's going to start radiation end of next week, and so he won't be able to be here on June 11th. I have let Pastor Patterson know, but please keep Karen in your prayers, and he said his regrets in that, but he also figured you would understand, and so just keep Karen in your prayers. It's a glioblastoma. I don't know prognosis and anything like that, but I do believe it's very aggressive and something to keep in your prayers then. So with that in mind, I'll close with a prayer. I'll pray for Pastor Gagline.
This young lady that's with me, that's now gonna be my roommate, she's going through some issues medically. She was a heavy smoker, developed a high blood pressure, ended up having a stroke, lost her eyesight on her right eye. And then because of the high blood pressure, she's now on dialysis. And hopefully this past weekend, we're gonna go to San Antonio to Methodist Hospital to see if she's capable of having a kidney transplant. And then Tuesday, she's going to have a procedure done to her right eye to see maybe she can get some vision on that right eye. She's got partial vision on the left.
That's Francis.
Francis.
Pray for her too, and she is. but, I can talk to you maybe after. I'm friends with the Methodist, but let's close with prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this group that's gathered here tonight as we bask in the glow of what you've given us through Jesus. May our hearts be warmed by that. And yet, may they also be rekindled with the love, not only the love that we know you have for us, that you have each and every day for us, that we'll never lose or get less of in the days ahead, but also that we be rekindled with the love for those that also need to know that love, to feel that, to know what you've done for them in Jesus. And I pray that as we've had these conversations, as we share the different tools and questions that we've asked, I pray that this group would be blessed as they get a chance to think about their neighborhood and to see what you have put before them and whom you put in their lives that they might reach with the gospel, whether it's through their congregation or just in their own individual personal witness with the gospel. Bless myself and Pastor Bode as we work alongside of them in whatever capacity that we might better position them to do that and possibly partner with them. But we leave that in your hands and we ask that you would bless that process. But tonight, it's with your love, your wisdom, your power in mind that we come to you and we entrust to your hands. Karen Dateline, we ask that you be with her and her family as she now battles cancer, a very aggressive cancer. We entrust them to your loving arms and ask that you would bring healing to her through the treatment she receives, if that be your will. Above all else, though, give her and her family the hope that eternal life is hers through Jesus, and nothing can change that. Nothing can separate her from the love that you have given her in Jesus. I pray that you be with Frances as well as she undergoes some health difficulties in the days ahead, tests, hospitalization. Be with her and assure her of Jesus' abiding presence with her. And I pray that you would bless any treatments and tests undertaken on her behalf as well. We ask this all in Jesus' name and pray that this body of Christ can be there for one another. It's in his name we ask the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bless